All right, welcome everyone to another podcast. I have Roman Soyko on with me today as my guest, and he is a former police officer from Ohio, moved down to Florida. He's been real estate investing for since what, 2017? Is that right? 2018, something around
Yeah,
there.
like
And
seriously investing in, yeah.
yeah, and he's focused now on new construction, although he's done a bunch of rehabs, wholesaling, stuff like that in the past. So welcome, Roman. Thanks so much for jumping on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. Of course.
All right. So, as always, let's jump into a little bit of your past to get people up to speed on where you came from before you got into real estate, and then
Mhm.
why and how you got into real estate and why you wanted to give real estate a try.
Well, how far back can we go? Because we can go back as far as to Ukraine, where I was born. I was born in the Soviet country, so the former Soviet Union, and moved here when I was a teenager. I think when we moved here with my family, like my parents, they knew what they saw what was happening all around them, and they wanted a better life for us. So luckily, we were able to, get a visa to come here, and then ended up staying here. Um, and then, did the typical school thing, went to college, wanted to be a I always wanted to be a police officer. So I actually went to college, got my degree, became a police officer, and I did that job for about 10 years full time, maybe 11 years or so. And then after, me and you worked together on coaching in the past. After that, I got injured and I was able to retire on disability. So I'm completely out now. But so real estate kind of happened. Well, my first property I ever bought was a duplex in 2012. That's, I guess, officially when I started. I didn't really think of it as like, oh, I'm getting into real estate. I just thought of it as like, oh, here's a duplex, extra income, and I have a job, so I might as well get some extra income. And then that one due, so that was 2012. Remember, we're like bottom of the market in
Hmm.
Ohio, in Cleveland market. We were picking up properties for 15,000, 25,000. We're picking up
Wow.
duplexes. So, and we're running them out at the time at like eight, 900 per unit. And we're all in for like
That's
30.
incredible. Oh my
So
God.
that was that was crazy back then. I should have bought more. But so I ended up buying a few. I think I had like two or three properties, one duplex, one single family, and another duplex. And then I was just working my full-time job, and I always looked at it as, oh, this is some side income. I didn't even think of myself as a real estate investor. And then I started listening to podcasts, and I came across Tucker's podcast, which we both know him.
Yeah.
And that actually opened my eyes to like, oh wow, there's like so much more possibility in real estate that I didn't even know existed. Like I didn't know I could flip them. I didn't know there's like all this other stuff I can do in real estate, or maybe I just scale what I'm currently doing. So around 2016, when my first daughter was born, that's when my wheels started turning. It's like, okay, I need to make more income. And my police job had me capped. There's only so much you can make, and there's only so much overtime I could work. So I started doing interesting, like as much as I could on my own, like finding off-market deals. I would be scraping Zillow FSBOs and the bandit signs. And I remember doing bandit signs, calling for sale by owner signs. And that was not sustainable because I could only get like one deal a year, maybe two. And 2016, 17, uh, it was just tough. It was tough. So that's when I joined your guys' program, learned how to properly do direct to seller marketing and how to utilize open letter marketing and direct mail. And from there, I actually did the math till 2023 is kind of when I stopped the flipping operation. I've done around 100 total projects. That's flips, rentals. And right now we're focusing strictly on new construction, ground up, new development type of stuff.
That's great. That's really cool. So when you got started in real estate, I know you kind of did the looked at FISBOs and all that. Did you get any deal? You got like one or two deals from that a year. When did you decide like this is not sustainable? And were you working full time the whole time you were like doing all this? Like how long were you working full time when you were doing real estate?
The whole time. So I just left in 2021. So up until 2021, I was doing both. I was flipping houses, had a real estate portfolio, like 10 properties at the time or something, and doing some construction side projects and working full time. And I was on the SWAT team too. So I was like working crazy, crazy hours.
Yeah. How'd you manage all that?
Oh
Because
man.
you had a young family too, right? You said your daughter was born, first daughter was born.
Yep, in 2016. You know, looking back, like I think the short answer is I was in my 20s. And as you know, like I'm approaching 40 soon here, but like in your 20s, you could sleep 3 hours a day and like that didn't bother you. And I would work a night shift and go from night shift to the job site and like meet with contractors and then go sleep during the day for like 3 hours, then back out, meet with contractors, back to night shift. I think um I just think you when you're younger, that's the time to grind and hustle because you have the energy to do that. Like in your 30s, your energy levels drop significantly, and I'm assuming in my 40s it'll be even less. I don't know. You tell me.
Absolutely. Yeah. I look back at the things that I did when I was, working full time and investing as well. I'm like, I don't know how I had the time to do that. It like boggles my mind. But like you said, I think it's just you're young and
Mhm,
you have a lot more energy and ready to go. You need less sleep. And
mhm.
you just, get shit done and make stuff happen. Cool. So you got started with direct to seller marketing. Like, how was that path? I know we worked together when I had a coaching program with Tucker, and you jumped on. But how was that whole process of like, knowing that you're going to send marketing out to people and they have to call you back? Did you get nervous about like having to deal with and talk to sellers, what to say, like fumbling around? Like, talk us through that process.
Yeah, 100%. So before I joined you guys' program, I did send some probates out, some probate marketing material out, and I actually got a few deals. And I'll tell you about the very first time. Here's how back in the day I used to do this. I would go to back the local newspapers, the magazines, and I would look at who died. Like, that
Yeah.
local newspaper got released weekly. And then I would go to the county website and see if those people owned real estate. And if they did, and I would concentrate on like my town only where I live. And and then if they did, I would send them a letter and I would send like 10 letters a week. And I still remember the very first call that I got, and I'll tell you. So I'm at the bank depositing a check or something, and I get a call. And I had a separate line set up on my phone so I could see a business call versus a regular call. And and I was like, holy crap, like it actually worked. Like I can't believe this. And I like ran outside and I answered the phone and I had no idea what to say. And I'm like, well, oh, I completely dropped the ball on that because that was a very motivated seller. And the price, I asked for an asking price. I remember over the phone, the price they gave me. Um, I ended up not acting on it, but I remember I was in my car when I totally screwed this conversation up. And I remember thinking, I'm never going to let this happen again. I need to have an outline for this conversation. So I created what's called a lead sheet, like my own lead sheet that I carried with me everywhere I went. I had my folder with my lead sheets, and because these calls will be coming in. And then I had somewhat of a structured conversation, even though I try to still have it more organic so I can
Mhm.
connect with people on the phone. So it was very scary. So hopefully that story tells you how scary it was and how much I messed up the first few.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so common though. I mean, when you get started and learning to talk to sellers and having that nervousness about talking to at least the first couple dozen, anyways. And like, I know when I got started, I lost a bunch of deals because I just didn't know what to say. I fumbled around, didn't know how to spot an opportunity. So that was like the earliest learning lessons of getting into direct to seller is like, you definitely need to have a learning curve of like, okay, there's going to be opportunities that I'm going to lose, but I'm going to learn along the way. And as you get better and better, you'll be able to close and spot better, more deals along the way. Um, cool. So you got into direct to seller marketing, you got into direct mail because again, it was not sustainable or scalable, the first method that you went. So you decided to go into direct to seller marketing. So tell us a little bit about like, from when you started to when you were like, okay, I really want to start scaling this, and like what changed? What was your mindset around spending money around marketing, and like how did that kind of work out for you for the deal,
Yeah.
your deal pipeline?
So that's the toughest part. You're spending money, thousands of dollars, and you're kind of at first it's like, well, I'm just throwing money in the wind. There's a high chance, high probability that the phone will never ring, and I'll never see a return on my investment or the marketing dollars spent. But from experience, every time you spend money, the phone will ring. The phone will ring. That's 100%. Almost a guarantee. Um, the the tough piece, I guess, for us investors is to when that phone rings, now it's on you. Now it's your skill set. How good are you on the phone? How well can you identify an opportunity? How well can you work the seller through the sales process? How well can you connect with them over the phone and then in person? And then the negotiation piece, you got to negotiate the deal. You got to silently devalue the property, which I did that in person, and then you gotta lock it up, and then it's so yeah, that's the toughest part. Now, to answer the first part of your question, when I how I started thinking about scaling is I couldn't do the 10 letters a week anymore. That was just too much. I couldn't go and look at these magazines every week and then look at the people that died and then go to the county and then search their names. It was just taking too much. So I learned that you can pull a list, and then I just didn't know what kind of lists to pull. And then eventually I got better at pulling lists. And then with the whole direct mail, you guys showed me the way, how to stack that, how to the different touches and how to stack different layers of marketing. And so that's where I learned that piece.
That's awesome. And then over the years, you said you've done like 100 deals over the years, right? Through renovations and whatnot. How many of those deals came from direct to seller, and how many came from like other means? Would you have to say? I'm not looking for like a specific number.
I would say 50% because 50% of those deals were on the market because when we were buying them early on the market, the market was so good
Hmm.
with REOs, we didn't have to do any of that. I started getting more into direct to seller when the market started heating up like 2016, 17, 18 when I saw that I couldn't buy them anymore at that discounted price. So I would say, yeah, 50%. But I'll tell you what, the best deals I've ever gotten, were, like on flips especially, were all came from direct mail.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I mean. That's the biggest thing when you go direct to seller. You're not paying any wholesale fees. You don't have any like other people bidding, so you have to spend more money. So you always I found that my best deals come from direct to seller versus like on market means. Um, and so, over that time, you've done a bunch of renovations, and then you move, right? You move down from Ohio to Florida. And tell us about that, like transition and how that adjusted what you're doing. And again, building that direct mail or direct to seller marketing pipeline back up.
That was a very tough decision because I already had a momentum going. I had a pretty good momentum going. I had a team of people around me. I had full-time employees on my construction side, and it was tough to say like, okay, let me just drop all this and go to Florida. So I tried to like balance both. I figured I can rely on my team when I'm in Florida, and I still did that for actually, matter of fact, I'm still doing that. I sent out letters a while ago, and we got a call just recently. just to prove the point that direct mail works years after it's sent. We got a call from, I don't even know when I sent this letter. This must have been a long time ago, and or what campaign it was. I don't know. But yeah, we locked it up. I was in Florida and I locked it up. I had my team in Ohio, and they're starting on the renovations like this week, maybe next week. As soon as we close, we're waiting on closing. But okay, I'm kind of all over the place. So going back to moving here. When we came to Florida, it was just to own a second home and Airbnb that home, and then go back to Ohio, and that's where my full-time business was. When I was in Florida, I identified some opportunities here that were crushing Cleveland, Ohio. There's nothing I can do in Cleveland that could touch these numbers in Florida. So I kind of jumped on this opportunity, and I'm like, you know what? We didn't plan on living here full time, but that's, I guess, what it's going to have to be now. So so now we're full go on these new construction projects, and like, you want me to tell you about what they are and what we're doing here?
Yeah, and also take us through. I mean, I'm curious just on the family side too. Like, was your wife on board? Were the kids on board? How did that conversation go? How long did it take you to transition and move? How did you transition your business? Yeah, I'm really curious on that piece of it.
So the wife was on board. She was actually the driving force behind all
Oh,
this.
okay, nice.
The kids, I mean, they're still young. My kids are young, so they kind of flow with the wind. But um, yeah, but they love it here. Moving the business, I had a bigger operation doing flips than I do doing new construction. Like, you don't need full-time guys. I don't know. It almost seems like it's easier. And what's crazy about it is I remember in 2019, 20, whenever I was in your program, and I remember I said, I really want to learn new construction, but I don't understand that it seems very difficult. And I remember you telling me, you said, actually, new construction is easier than renovations. And I just, I couldn't wrap my head around that. That didn't make sense to me at the time. But now I totally see it. It is easier, and the profit margins are better.
Yeah, absolutely. And are you still finding deals for new construction through direct to seller?
No, so here, with the town that I'm in Florida, it's 50% undeveloped. So anywhere you look, there's a lot for sale, and we just offer
Wow.
on the market, we just try to get them at a discount. My wife is a real estate agent here in Florida and in Ohio. So she did all of our sales, flips in Ohio, and she does acquisition and disposition here in Florida as well.
Okay. Yeah, take us through one of your new construction projects. Like what's the scale, what's the size, what are you selling them out for? What are you buying the land for?
Yeah, so this is the interesting part. So there's in the city that I'm in, which is Cape Coral, you can literally build a $400,000 house, or like a 300, or you can build a $5 million house. And the reason for that is the city has the most canals in the world. Yeah, and all these canals are the access to the Gulf. So basically, there's properties that are like closer to, well, first of all, there are properties that are on the water, Gulf access. They have no bridge restrictions, so you can get any sort of yacht, any boat through there. And there are properties that are on the canal that have bridge restrictions, so you can only get smaller boats through there. There are properties that face the open water where the land is like just a lot is a couple million. And there are houses that are on dry lots. We call them dry lots. They're just regular lots. They're all over, and you can buy those lots for like 50 grand. So I identified the opportunity in on the canal lots that have no bridge restrictions. So direct Gulf access. You can get a
Hmm.
sailboat in there, huge yacht, whatever. So this is the lots we're going for. So these lots run between 350,000 to about 450,000 just for the lot. And then for construction, we're usually for the other thing I identified here is that there's not enough two-story houses. Everything is a ranch here. not enough builders are building two-story houses. And with the amount of people that are coming to Florida, especially younger families now, there's no basements in Florida, so people want the two-story. So I was thinking, okay, if we deliver a product that's two-story on the Gulf Access Canal, that's the best of the best. That's the best that
Hmm.
you can do here in Florida. So so that's what the product we're going for. So lot purchase, we're around just under 400 grand. We're going to be around 800 in construction.
What's
That
that? What's that cost per square foot that you're building at?
three no per square foot on the build cost is about 225.
Okay, that's not bad.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah.
Uh, the
Okay.
labor force here is fairly cheap.
Yeah.
It's good here. Um, and then we're at, if the one I'm building now, the two-story model is going to be about 3,400 square feet, just under that. And we're going to be selling it for around 2 million, give or take.
That's awesome. Those are some pretty strong numbers.
Yeah, very strong numbers. Yeah. We can
Nice.
do one of those a year or at 5 years and be good.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like you're doing less volume, more specific product, versus what you were doing before, a little bit more volume on the volume side. Yeah.
100%, 100%.
Nice. So if you were to, do you ever see yourself expanding on this, or are you just going for like the large profit margins, the lower volume? Is that your speed now?
Yeah, I think so. I kind of thought about maybe doing more, but the more you do, as you know, the like after you've done more and you scaled it down, you realize like, okay, this is the best way to do it. This
Hmm.
is how it should be done because your stress levels are not bad. You don't have employees and all that. So am I gonna scale this? If I do, it's just gonna be in the price point of a home. So instead of 2 million, we'll start building 4 million or 5 million, or we'll
Hmm.
build right on the open water where we could sell for 5, 6 million. So that's the only thing I see me scaling. But I don't see myself doing more than like 3 houses, maybe 4 a year.
Yeah. 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 And I think that's all perspective too, right? Like you're not going to come into this business and go right off on the 4 million, $2 million homes. It's like your built up experience that you've had that now you can take more opportunities. And that's exactly what I did. I started like entry level homes, least amount of risk, smaller dollars, get into it, do a rehab, get comfortable with that, go up to mid entry or mid level homes, go into high end homes, high end new construction, multifamilies, like, so you keep on like building your business and your skill set so you can do, because you know the numbers don't seem as crazy once you start doing this over and over again. So
Mhm.
you just hit those different levels. So I think somebody starting out, they'd be like, holy shit, like 2 million, 3 million bucks. Like that's a huge amount of risk, but you've tolerated that, right? You don't have that stress level anymore. So yeah, I think there is different stressors in what we do and how we kind of overcome it.
Yeah.
Um,
To
so
kind of piggyback off of what you said, Justin, sorry to
yeah,
interrupt.
no, go ahead.
I think this is a huge point to make for the new guys listening to this. First of all, you're not gonna, the experience level is huge. You need those stepping stones, the little $100,000 houses, then the 200, then go up to 500. And then as the higher up you go, you realize that it's the same work, it's the same construction, is just that there's a little more zeros at the end, but the process is the same. But the other thing that it does is it boosts your confidence going from 100 to 200, from 200 to 500, and it boosts your confidence enough where you go into higher price point deals and you're like, well, I'm confident now. Now I'm confident in my abilities, my construction knowledge, my process. That even though you can say it's a higher risk, right? But it really isn't. It's just now your experience and confidence levels are up, so the risk is the same actually.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. So just going back to when you were doing some more direct to seller marketing, like what are the biggest takeaways that you had from doing direct to seller and like finding properties? And specifically, like what advice do you have for people that are either getting started in direct to seller marketing? What advice would you give them?
Okay, so let's start with the advice. So advice is this. understand that you are going to spend the money, but as long as you execute and like you don't give up on the process of direct to seller marketing, the answering the phone calls and negotiations, you will get a deal. And understand that the payoff from that initial investment, you'll see that 6 months or a year from now.
Mhm.
So that's, I think, that is the toughest part to get over. So you basically have to be dialed in and locked in for a year. You send the mail out, 6 months ago, but you still have to be dialed in and trust the process for an entire year until you get that first, second, or third deal. So, and as far as what takeaways, there's a lot, man. So, I think the very first thing, the very first contact you make with a seller, that is your one and only chance to make an impression on the seller. So that's why I always answer my phone calls live. Eventually, I hired an acquisition person, and she did that for me. But when I was doing it myself, you have to answer the phone call live every time, because if you don't, they'll just call the
Mhm.
flyer they got in the mail. Then you have to build that rapport on the phone right off the bat. So if you built that rapport on the first phone call, your chances of closing that deal are going to be much higher. And then you have to, every time you talk to the seller, you got to take them to the next step of the sales process. And the next step for me was an appointment. And I try to schedule that as soon as I could. Like if it was today, I'd drop whatever I'm doing and I would go and go to these appointments. And then when you're there in person, you can't be a robot. You have to show them that you're also a person, like you're just a normal person trying to feed your family. You're not trying to steal their house. And then there's a negotiations aspect that you have to learn. I would read some negotiations books, because that's where you make the deals happen, is through the negotiations. Because most sellers are going to start high. They're all going to ask high because they looked on Zillow, and Zillow says whatever.
Yeah.
So, your skills in negotiating or lack thereof will kind of indicate how successful you're going to be in this business. Um, but then, that's only half of the battle right there. Then you got to find the money to close it, and then you got to do the rehab, and then you got to sell it. So, just if my one final, I guess, piece of advice would be like, if you make up your mind that you're gonna be successful and you're gonna get into real estate and you're gonna do this, you can't have a plan B. There's only one way, and that's how it's gonna work. And no matter what happens, you're gonna be dialed in until you succeed. That's how I was. That's how I know. That's how you are, and that's how most successful people are. There is no plan B. You have a plan and you execute, and you have to wake up every day and something has to drive you. Maybe you can create like a why for yourself. For me, my why was like I knew I wanted to leave my police job one day, but I had to substitute my income first. So yeah, if you commit to this, just understand this is going to be a long-term commitment. This is not like a 6-week trial or even a 6 months trial. This is like a year plus. Actually, real estate is it's a lifestyle. This is like a lifelong commitment you're making. So, yeah, hopefully that answers my question.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the biggest thing what you said is like, the commitment to one, getting into direct to seller marketing, give your commit to at least 6 months, because as you mentioned, like you're going to start marketing and it's like you're building momentum. So every time you talk to somebody, and you'll have to learn to talk to and negotiate with sellers. So you're going to be going through that at the same process. So it's going to take you a good 6 months to really talk to sellers, build that momentum and pipeline so you can actually start closing deals. And the other thing that you mentioned too, and I'll say it in a different way, is like you just have to execute. Like you just have to get shit done.
Mhm.
Like focus on what you need to do next. You don't need to learn everything under the sun of what you need to do. Just like know, okay, next I need to do this, and just do it, execute. And I think a lot of people, they're like, oh, I'll get started once I learn this aspect of it or this other thing. And it's like, okay, no, like you're just postponing,
Mhm.
just get the next step done and just
Yep.
focus on that. And I think that's what I see a lot of commonalities between, people that I talk to is like they just have the ability to get shit done. like execute, right? They don't like overthink things. Some people do, some people don't, but they still take action. And I think that's really critical. So yeah. All right,
Uh,
Roman. Oh, go
uh,
ahead. You have something else?
so yeah, you know what I equate it to is the best analogy I've heard. Hopefully, this some people will relate to this. Like when it's foggy outside, or when it's super rainy out. You know, in Florida we get a lot of rain. Do you and you're driving? Are you just going to stop and pull over? Some people do, but most people they just drive, but they drive slowly and they drive 10 feet, and then you see another 10 feet ahead, and you drive 10 feet and you see 10 feet ahead. That's business for you. You don't know what's a mile down the road, but you can see 10 feet ahead. And so you make that move 10 feet or 20 feet or whatever. And in new construction, dude, I had no clue. I had no clue. I'm in a new state. I had no clue what is going on, how to do this. Like today, I went to the city to notarize a notice of commencement. Like I didn't know I had to do this, but every new thing that you encounter, you're like, oh, okay, all right, let me take care of this today, and then tomorrow I'll see what happens next, and I'll take care of that problem.
Mhm.
Um, with flipping houses and or direct mail, that's exactly how it's going to be for you guys. You just got to understand that just get shit done at least today. At least get shit done today, and then when tomorrow comes around, get shit done tomorrow too, and
Yeah.
then the next day, and that's how you learn. You
I like that analogy. I might have to borrow it. That
know.
was a good one. I haven't heard that before.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So how can people get a hold of you if they want to, look you up or find out a little bit more about what you're doing or get in touch with you? Like, what's the best way somebody can get in touch?
Probably Instagram. I'm on there, not as much as I used to. I used to have a lot more social media presence. I kind of dialed that down, but it's romanempire.cle, and I also have my own podcast that's Building Roman's Empire podcast. That's what it's called, Building Roman's Empire podcast.
Excellent. All right, Roman. Well, I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for taking some time and chatting with me. And I will talk to you soon.
Yeah, man, it was a blast. Thank you.
Thank you.